Imagine playing in a board game where you've got a mayor and a deputy mayor of an American city, and you've got a chief of emergency services and an operations executive controlling the fire engines and the paramedics and ambulances and stuff, and then you've got a chief of police controlling the police force and an operations executive there as well to help controlling all the cops. And then you've got a city map. And then you have another city map with all those people, and you might have a press officer there as well. Maybe that city's got more hospitals, or maybe none at all. And then, well, let's say you've got 5 of those cities. One of them is a state capital, and all of these cities are the biggest cities in the state. Then you've got the roads between the cities with maybe a military air base and perhaps a National Guard centre. So you've got a National Guard commander and their deputies. And then you've got, Homeland Security base at the airfield and various federal agents and federal services like the FBI and CIA and so on. So you've got all of this, and then of course because you've got a state, you've also got a state governor and their deputies and staff and so on. And all of this is one big board game, except you've also got another 11 sites like this, covering 10 different American states, and they're all interconnected and linked and playing at the same time across 5 countries and 3 time zones. And you've got a federal government at the 11th site, which is playing the White House and the Pentagon. So why have all of these games all interconnected? Well, that's because there's a zombie apocalypse going on. So cities, loads of cities being overrun with zombies, state resources or federal resources being allocated and misallocated, and chaos everywhere. You'd be forgiven for thinking that's not complicated enough. So why not add some politics as well by having some cities with Democrat mayors, some with Republican, but maybe their chief of emergency services and chief of police, maybe they're the opposite party. So now you've got politics going on, and then maybe at the end of the game, there are elections for state governors and nominations for presidential candidates for each party. Perhaps you might also throw in local news agencies and also national news agencies, with the national news coming up on big screens around the room. Add all of this together and you've got 500 players from Belgium, Holland, UK, America and Canada, where they're also dealing with the refugee crisis from the States, and a president carrying a briefcase with nuclear codes in it. Add all of this together and you've got Urban Nightmare, State of Chaos. One hell of a mega game, the biggest board game ever played. Wow. I am the head of emergency services for the city of Richmond, and I have been assigned Republican at birth. I've been put into the Republican team. Can't imagine anyone less Republican than me, but anyway, that's the team I'm playing for today. So between me and you, I'm in it for personal profit. I'm going to end today, if I can, as the richest person. My mayor is a Democrat, but the chief of police is also a Republican. I think he's on board with the mission. This is going to be my hometown for the day, Richmond City, and you'll notice there that a number of the hexes have those white tower blocks in. Those are buildings, and actually I forgot what the map looked like with those on. Yeah, they didn't last. This map is used by the state police, so they're patrolling the roads in between cities, trying to stop the hordes of zombies from migrating, and it also shows the connections to neighbouring states. That's my city, Richmond, on the east of the map. There's also a National Guard base here, and there's an air base just here. Now, one of the things to note with the Richmond map is we have 2 key locations. This one here, that's full of Democrat voters, and this one here, that's full of Republicans. So, obviously, I need a plan to deal with that. I'm thinking of a dead drop.
In about 5 minutes' time, we will enter turn 0.
So here I am with my Democrat city mayor, but we are agreed to work together to save the city, because we're going to put party differences aside in this game.
It is absolutely integral that at this time party differences are laid aside. We are in a state of I wouldn't say crisis. It is a concerning state. Thankfully, with my staff of the emergency services and the police, we're going to resolve this crisis as quickly as possible. Everything's fine. Nothing is the matter.
Not yet, no.
Not yet.
But he's been very clear about protecting where his family is and the Democratic voter base. Which I felt was not quite in the spirit of saving the city.
And the Republicans. And, everyone deserves a chance at life.
I had to point out that the Republican voter base was quite near the hospital that we need.
Our priorities are to protect the city's core interests.
I think it's fair to say you're playing this for a political game for the Democrats here.
I think you need to talk to the media about that.
I'll show you this guy. This guy I'm stood with now is the face of the man who killed the entire state of Wabash. But before we get to that story, the last thing he just said to me was, he thinks I should talk to the media about that. Well, funnily enough, as he said that, I knew that in my pocket I had these recordings.
If it really looks like I'm not going to get re-elected, I might just nuke the city.
And he would drive school children slowly towards a neighbouring state to try and attract the zombies out, and that he would also let the press office fall if they started publishing negative stories about him. And I've sent those recordings to the press. So the first turn, our mayor and deputy mayor have spent most of the time trying to politically assassinate me to cover up this scandal that as I said, with sound recordings. Our chief of police has been a genuine hero, himself fighting on the front lines ahead of the police forces to try and curb a zombie outbreak. Zombies are heading towards our main municipal hospital, our only hospital, which is terrifying. But the police assure me they've got it. The police chief himself on the front lines. I'm now attached myself to frontline units of the fire service to try and help with firefighting, and the Republican team are absolutely in it and leading from the front, whilst our mayor is busy running around talking to the press, trying to score political points to make up for his own comments.
Grounding of all flights into and between US cities. All flights in the air must be quarantined on the tarmac at airports for 8 hours before letting passengers off. This is in response to spread of an unknown infectious disease. Thank you.
So into the next turn, I got investigated by the FBI. Like any good FBI agent, he never let on exactly what it was he wanted to hear. And like a good politician, I only tried to tell him what he wanted to hear. So I found out after the game I was being investigated for financial embezzlement. And what had happened is the mayor and his Democrat sidekick, the deputy mayor, had both tried to report me to the FBI and the press for embezzlement. And so the FBI were investigating me. And the thing is, I hadn't yet been given any money by anyone in order to embezzle. So I was on this case completely innocent. Of course, at this point in the game, I was still intending to, embezzle. We've sent all of our paramedics with casualties to the capital of the state, Boyle. And Boyle asked us to send them with police, but sadly the message didn't get through to our chief of police, who died this turn. So consequently, the police haven't gone this turn. Those casualties and paramedics are about to turn up to a hospital that's overrun with zombies in Boyle, because the police aren't there yet. I've arranged for paramedics to come to us from Boyle, 2 of them, but I've got the message to our deputy chief of police, who's now our chief of police because our deputy's dead. Oh gosh, so much going on. Up until now, we'd been handling the situation brilliantly. Fran was our operations executive for the police, and she'd dealt with all of the zombies, and Jason had been dealing with the fires and the paramedics, and everything was under control. But then the neighbouring state fell. All these zombies flooded through and multiplied. We lost control. We didn't have the police forces to deal with the zombie influx. So we formed a line down the middle of the city. We thought, well, we've lost the eastern half, but let's see if we can hold the west.
Got interviewed by the FBI about you.
Did you? Concerning what?
I don't actually understand what they were asking questions about.
Like this, the Homeland Security came and talked to me concerning you about like 45 minutes ago. Honest to God, I have no fucking idea what's going on.
They were asking about our working relationship.
Professional, I would say.
Out the game, I'd have drinks with this guy. In the game, he's the enemy.
Am I? We're working very well together. I'll just put my fucking cigarette out.
Clearly, that's not the line I fed the press. No, I'm joking, of course. Well, sort of.
Sort of. Have you seen how many fucking zombies are on the map this turn?
We're fucked. What to do about it?
I've told the police to just hold the line for the time being, and we'll come up with a longer-term strategy as the situation unfolds. I don't want to.
I know you want to keep your vote. I know you want to get re-elected, but look, there's not going to be a city left.
If the worst comes to the worst, I will. But
It has. Is police already doing double time?
yeah, we're
You've got two choices. You can either fight off the zombies, in which case you need guns, or
we're
we
working
make
on
peace
that.
with them, contain them.
We're working on acquiring weapons to outfit our police force with. That's been on the boil since turn 1. We'll see. We'll get halfway through this turn and then I'll assess whether a state of emergency is required.
I think, look, it's about a quarter of the city covered in zombie tokens.
Yeah, I mean, Game Control did just tell me we were doing too well, so now they're fucking us over as a result.
So the adjacent state of Michigan has gone into complete panic. I don't know where in the world that state's being played, but the whole state has just crumbled. It's only turn 4. We are the connecting city to Michigan. We've built a line of police to defend it, but how to put this into words? We can't take on the zombies from an entire state. We've been promised some funding from the federal government if we get a zombie sample. We're using our firefighters for it. I tried to do a deal with a neighbouring town as well to get another doctor and a paramedic, and it's all doing our best. But the zombies at the moment are winning. I want to make peace with them somehow, but I don't know how to talk to them. I should recognise them as people. There seems to be a coup in the governor's office.
I understood that they felt they did not have the strength to defend the city. I think that was a hasty decision, and something also that I am aware of the governor's office, which is part of the reason for confidence in the leadership of the governor himself.
The capital is in a mess. Let me try and show you the map. That's those white cards are the zombie infestations. And that's the capital. I don't know who this city is, but they have got off light. That was the city of Gary. This is the city of Fort Wayne. They are deep in the shit. Oh, I see. Right. They're not doing too bad, but they've got their problems.
Following Michigan was being overrun by Zeds. If you take a look at our board, it's not looking great. We urge the governor at this time to do everything that he can to help us out and to contain this serious outbreak. Thank you very much.
Our mayor finally declaring a state of emergency. The zombie hordes are multiplying massively on us. I'm not allowed over the table at this stage of the turn, but I saw that there were protests in the street, swarms of zombies. But I did see that I myself survived because I'm on the front lines at the moment trying to get a sample to take to federal government.
Yes. I know, but actually the National Guard prevented you from doing this.
I've actually written.
So you're not
the Vice Governor has just been arrested in Richmond, and there's no National Guard to protect him.
A very interesting afternoon indeed. So, I've been informed by the operational commanders in Royal City and by the chiefs of police, the army, the National Guard, everyone who's actually been watching the situation, that the situation that's developed in Royal City was through pure incompetence. Zombies were not attacked, they were not surrounded, they were not dealt with, and then it took 4 in-game turns for someone to even say, Royal City needs help. The National Guard are out in force, are on the highways, and are heading to Royal City.
Down with the illegitimate governor!
We'll see what happens when the army gets here, and we hope to save everyone. Thanks very much.
Go ahead and save yourself!
So this is the state of play. Our city is completely overrun. There's the hospital. We're trying to clear out the hospital and the Republican voting areas, and then myself, I believe, or will be about to be, just, you know, trying to save people. This is Terra Hawks. They were doing okay, but they've just signed an order to use non-conventional weapons. The city of Gary looks untouched. You guys have got it easy. So this is Fort Wayne. They're in trouble. Through here somewhere, we have what can only be described as the former city of Boyle.
We are seeking to return to normality as soon as we possibly can.
Okay.
I need to go and have a chat with my fellow mayors and decide what the plan of action is going.
Are you having another meeting?
At some point, yes. We're currently dealing with crises in our own cities.
I heard a discussion of a joint press statement from the mayor. Is that still happening?
Yes, as soon as we can coordinate one.
Call everyone together.
Yeah. And then we'll give a unified statement.
Okay. Are you doing that now? Could you do it now?
We'll do it in like 2-3 minutes. I just need to find out what's going on.
Ollie, Terra Hawk just signed an order to use non-conventional weapons.
Right. Yeah. Mine has been signed, but I haven't given it in yet. What's our situation? Do we need non-conventional weapons?
See for yourself. We're trying to clear out the hospital.
Yeah.
Because the hospital got overrun.
Right.
So we're sending everything there now to try and do it.
I think it's probably time.
I think I've just convinced the mayor to sign an order to use non-conventional weapons. That should end him politically. What we're doing in Richmond is we've just heard the news. The zombie virus is spreading through the water. So what we're going to do is have a great Richmond firewall where we're basically going to scorch earth, build a wall of fire around the hospital that we're currently clearing out, and hopefully the fire will both stop the zombies and of course prevent fires from coming further in, because wall of fire, right? Firewall. That's my plan, my cunning plan. I just told the press that and my team, and we're on it. Meanwhile, it looks like the city of Boyle has fallen, and the president has expressed that her thoughts with the city, but does not see the need to declare a state of emergency. That's one insane president.
There is mass panic in the streets, rioting, looting.
Where's the governor?
This includes quite a lot of police officers who have now abandoned their posts. That's all.
So it sounds like Fort Wayne has gone into maximum panic, and there's refugees clogging up the roads. Now, unfortunately, we need to get into Fort Wayne, or rather the governor does with the National Guard, in order to get airstrikes. It doesn't look like the airstrikes will happen now. So we've got to need another plan.
Ladies and gentlemen, obviously we are facing somewhat of a major issue within our fair cities. The National Guards have been working to protect you and continue to do so. We have just liberated the military base just outside of Fort Wayne, and we'll be contacting the military for immediate assistance. We will then be spreading through Fort Wayne into Bold City and recapturing the other cities. I have also just been deputised as a police officer, and I have been given authority from the State Police with the following message. I, the Chief of State Police, grant the power of arrest to the Commander of the National Guard to detain the Governor of Wabash for possible falsification of federal documents. I now put you under arrest. And I pass the stream over to the collective mayors.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm pleased to announce that, effective immediately, I am running for the position of Governor. The Mayor of Boyle City will be the interim Vice Governor and interim Governor. Until such time as the crisis is resolved, we will be leading the efforts to retake Wabash from the Z population.
Okay, news has just broken in the national media that the Z outbreak is due to collusion between the Wabash Corporation and the government. It seems they've tied up the Mex Corp in it as well. So the corporations and the government aren't at this site here.
It is now
but it does seem
6 a.m. in the morning on day 3.
Seem it's all been happened to have...
You've all been up for a very long time.
That's the situation. We're still building our great Richmond firewall. We've got the firewall up, but we're still trying to clear out our side of it. I've sent our new mayor, which was the former deputy, to try and, get money, basically. Oh, I am out of breath, but I was a genius, right? The great firewall, it kind of works. Problem is, we had some level 4 zombies on our side. I just went round and raised money from everyone, everywhere, and I got 25 million, pumped it all into frontline troops. I still got my personal stash of cash. Haven't used that at all. Now, on top of that, I went and had a talk with the national security guy, and I got some special forces in to come and deal with the zombies on our side of the Great Firewall.
When I explained to the army that the situation in Richmond was salvageable, he sprung into action like a gazelle on steroids to send the special forces into Richmond. Unfortunately, those special forces would end up diverted on orders directly from the President to spring our governor from jail, our governor who had been arrested by the Mayor of Richmond.
I heard the words of the President herself has said she doesn't back our government and we won't get any federal support for as long as this lot of charlatans are in power. They're also now saying they've got a cure when they haven't. Just if you vote for them, they'll cure you, which is incredible audacity. I've been trying desperately to get the National Guard to add some napalm to our firewall, but actually it's nearly sufficient enough to protect us. Meanwhile, there seems to be some breaking local news. Pacifist zombies? Prior credit given to ex-Richmond Mayor, misassigned is due to current Richmond Mayor. Ex-Richmond Mayor put career ahead of his people. Oh, fantastic! I think I've just taken a lot of votes. Because I got handed the mayor card. I don't exactly know why.
Meanwhile, I discovered that the Vice Governor was being held as a prisoner in the city of Richmond by our own police force. So I had a word with our police team and had him released. With the governor still in jail, this meant that the elected Vice Governor was now in power and not Ollie. This quickly resulted in the assassination of Ollie.
I combated this by authorising National Guard, by authorising the Army, by authorising the use of non-conventional weapons, which includes the cure, which is now coming to you all. I've also personally defended Boyle City for 4 terms before I was arrested for being the governor, which the President has overturned and had me sprung out by special forces.
We've just received word that the zombies are themselves pacifist in nature and they only respond to threats from outside forces.
So Gary has been trying to take as humanitarian an approach as possible during this crisis. We've tried to minimise direct contact with zombies and our citizens as much as possible. We've managed to keep a lot of people alive, thankfully, because of that. we've been taking refugees, and we've managed to keep our hospitals open and operational throughout this crisis. And we've also given the government, the federal government, a zombie that we actually captured. My crew risked their lives, my government officials risked their lives to capture that so that we could help produce this cure that the governor is taking the credit for.
Let me just back this up here. What's going on here is a political masterclass from the mayor of Gary. The whole thing about pacifist zombies was just to get her name in the news. It was, of course, complete rubbish. The thing about keeping hospitals open, well, we'd all managed that. And lastly, the zombie to be given to the government. Actually, Gary did rescue a zombie, and they sold it to a corporation. It was the city of Richmond who got the zombie to the federal government, and I personally, my counter in the game was on the front lines doing that. If I'd have been injured, I'd have been out of the game. This is political mastery at work.
So I also want to say as well that because the zombies are responding so negatively to aggression, I don't think that it's necessarily the best move to try and move the army into Gary without my consent, as has been attempted a few times.
So what's going on here with this? Without my consent, the army arriving? Indeed, the army had arrived, along with the National Guard. In fact, Gary had twice the police and double the number of hospitals of every other city. It was a big city. The governor had been arrested because he had a bit of paper signed by somebody in Gary City saying that the army could go in. And that's why Gary was doing so well. They had all the resources. But when the coup happened that displaced the governor, they all denied any knowledge of signing that bit of paper.
During this crisis. Thank you.
That was a lie.
I'll pass it over to the new Richmond mayor.
Hi there. Right, we've heard a lot of nonsense about being pacifist. We saw what happened with Boyle. They didn't attack. And look what happened to Boyle. That's the first thing to fall. So they're not pacifists, that's clear. As I have been on the front line from the start, it's me personally who got the sample to the federal government. I am proud to be from the city of heroes, that is Richmond. That's unquestionable, we've all seen that here today.
Can I just say, rumours of my death have been very much exaggerated.
What a shame!
I am disillusioned with the political system. Some of you argued that I put my own political game above the people of Wabash. I am telling you that is categorically untrue. In my short tenure as Vice Governor, I orchestrated the cure arriving in Wabash, which the current governor is trying to take claim for. From now on, I'm retiring from politics. I'm going to go become a journalist for a little bit, in the style of Alex Jones. Can I just say, screw you all, I did all right.
This is the state of play in Richmond. It's basically level 4 infestation everywhere, apart from at the hospital. And here's our great firewall. And we've just got an attack helicopter come in to help clear out behind it. And then we're clear. We've saved a corner of the city.
In my role as mayor, I'd managed to get the National Guard to send an attack helicopter over. And on the next turn, I managed to get Homeland Security to send in an airstrike to clear out behind our firewall that was at this moment readily burning zombies to a cinder. There was just one problem. Both the attack helicopter and the airstrike completely missed.
Or not, the presidential nominees is still ongoing in the rest of the USA. So anybody who would like to be a presidential candidate or nominated for a presidential candidate needs to contact me as soon as possible. I need, if you're a Democrat or Republican, that race is still going ahead. Please contact me. And Doug, you've got something to announce?
There's a small press story going out.
Hello, folks. Unfortunately, it's come to my investigative attention. There's been massive amounts of collusion between the press and various politicians. And there's been a lot of vote buying going on. If we go, it's gone. But if you go back up the screen, unfortunately you can't, you'll see evidence from inside the press corps. well, yeah, very quite busy, of who has bribed us over the last while. Boyle, the governor, Gary, literally everyone in Gary. Terre Haute, one or two. The governor, you.
I thought I had to pay for a press story because I was in prison.
Well, we have you down to the right. And also Homeland Security. Now, we also have photos of Gary paying for votes. You can see here the very happy smiley face of the mayor of Gary handing over money for votes to some Rupert Murdoch-style person. So unfortunately, I have to say, this following political event, the vote, is highly rigged, and it kind of brings into doubt the very political nature of this event. So I have to say, tut tut.
So going for state government at the end, and these are basically the staff. So these are the people that are standing. We've got the Emma of Gary, John McClare, Governor, Chief of Staff somewhere, and me with votes on there at the moment, because those are the ones I collected before the beginning of voting. And now everyone, I think, is going to go placing their cards down and stuff.
The one that really matters, though, is the governorship of this smoking wreck of a state. It is between John McClane, 0 votes, beaten slightly by Lord Buckethead. I'm actually going to have to count these. The Governator, 18 votes. 19 votes then. Becky Rose, 19 votes. And Emma. Gary. I'm really not going to count that. At least this many. Plus the ones where we had to make up 50s. Congratulations on your election to governor of this wasteland. Feel free to make a short speech.
Thank you. I'm so happy that good has triumphed over evil. I would also like to announce that Paul, the mayor of Boyle City, will be my vice governor. He supports me throughout the process. And I think together we can try and salvage as much of this state as we can and rebuild our communities. Thank you.
So the two people that bought votes then? The two most corrupt politicians who bought all the votes then?
I genuinely haven't done anything corrupt this whole game.
Now, we also have photos of Gary paying for votes. You can see here the very happy smiley face of the mayor of Gary handing over money for votes to some Rupert Murdoch-style person.
One of your deputies did come to me with a lot of money they got off the press in exchange for deregulation of it.
The point is that Gary playing Gary did nothing wrong, and all the rest of them did all the wrong things for her.
So that's what happened politically in Wabash State, the Cambridge game that we attended. But there are two sides to Mega Games. It's not just the politics. There's also a tactical game, which Jason was doing.
Yes, I was indeed. So, I was the Deputy Chief of Emergency Services, and essentially I was working all the mechanical side of the fire support and also the paramedics. But in the end, people kind of regarded me as Chief of Emergency Services anyway, because I seem to be doing quite well, wouldn't you say?
Well, no, I wasn't aware.
Okay, in that case I better tell you what was happening, what was going on. So while Becky was going and spreading all the political stuff, I was by the map most of the day. I did manage to go around a few and just scout around and see what was happening there. But essentially what was happening was the police chiefs were doing their move first with the police, so I could observe what they were doing, and we would sort of decide our move. And then what I'd be doing is I'd be cleaning up all the mess. So I'd be putting out fires, and I'd be sending the paramedics to go and get casualties and things like that. There was also a little phase for me called the triage, where I would then go and see how well the casualties were doing in the hospital. There was a very dramatic moment actually at one point when the chief of police had been in intensive care for quite some time, and I did finally manage to roll to stabilise him, and he ended up in a ward. So in the end, even though we thought he was dead, he actually was still alive.
Yay! So that's the thing about Mega Games, is it has, as Richmond burns around us and the smoke is actually getting a bit intense here now, but that's the thing about Mega Games, is you've got not just the whole interaction, the sort of, imagine a game, like, you know, you play these big board games sometimes and you go, this would be epic with 10 players or something, and then eventually you get a load of players around to play this game, and what actually happens is it drags on all day and nothing gets done. The fires are still raging in Richmond. We're trying our best here. But it turns out to be a huge disappointment, because board games are slow and crunchy and lots of mechanics. Mega Games solve that. They ramp it up from, instead of like, 10 or 6 or 8 players is a load or whatever, they go, right, hell, we'll have 50, 60 players, and in this one, over 500 players. But the game doesn't bog down. It keeps going regardless. So, because you've got teams of people where some people are dedicated to the mechanics, and other players are dealing with political responsibilities. So, it really gives the game a lot more pace, and, you know, a lot happens in a mega game. And I really love the format, but it can get a bit of a disconnect as well. Do you remember in our Watch the Skies game, our fleet was going off and we were getting resources from the fleet actions, and then the team, because our political team were basically wrapped around the fingers of France and the UK, were then giving our resources to people who were using them to build weapons for use against us. We knew that was our first mega game. We didn't know. The political team kind of, I think, missed the trick there.
I still preferred this one mechanically though. By the sounds of when you were in the operations room for Watch the Skies, it seemed really quite convoluted and we had a very small force. Whereas what was good about this was, even though I was only Chief of Emergency Services, as it were, for Richmond, the effects that other people were causing still kind of tumble into ours, like when all those zombies came pouring in, because obviously someone rolled very badly in wherever it was. Was it Terra Horse or?
We had 2 connections, one to Nishikawa, one to
and then Boyle City.
Boyle City, the state capital.
So obviously someone had rolled really, really badly.
Well, Boyle just fell.
What was really interesting though about our table was that I thought strategically we did very well. We managed to not only hold the hospital, but we also managed to hold a little bit around it at least. And can I just say, even with the extreme lack of funding for both the police and the emergency services, I think that Richmond had the most efficient hospital in the whole of Wabash. We didn't even fill it once.
You did do good there.
Yeah, although having said that, that was mainly because at one point there were so many zombies on the board that I couldn't go around picking any of the casualties up.
I was going to say, were people dying in the streets?
But the details.
The hospital ran well.
Details. But we still managed to evacuate technically a lot of citizens to the hospital.
We did, yes.
Which is very good. I also was in charge technically of keeping all the important people alive on the board. So again, I managed to say the Chief of Police is live. I also kept you very much alive.
Yeah, but what I really wanted was photographs of me with a fire axe embedded in a zombie's head so that it could go to the press. I didn't really want to be on the front lines, but at the same time I never wanted to die because I was busy politicking.
No.
So thank you for keeping me alive.
We did have a little bit of politics though.
You did?
Well, yeah, on the board. Like, for example, because me and the Chief of Police and Operations Chief always sort of were planning moves and so on, we also got to sort of discuss our very Republican opinions and blah blah blah, since we were all so Republican at birth, just like Becky. And there was one point when we were sort of looking very carefully at where the mayor was, and we were thinking, wouldn't that be good if we could just like assassinate him or leave him to burn? Because we thought at one point he would just forget to move himself. Because the thing is that the important people, the VIPs, were responsible for moving their tile on the board. And we thought at one point, oh yeah, let's just leave him, but unfortunately he remembered. So then we thought eventually, okay, he's obviously done this coup, it was by the time the coup had happened and so on, we thought, yeah, let's just assassinate him. But then somebody did that for us, and we were like, oh, okay, never mind then.
But that was as a result of releasing the Vice-Governor.
Yes, it was. It was. But yeah, really good fun, very easy to learn rules, which I was surprised at. And the two guys were really helpful in terms of guiding us and being like, yeah, you can do that and whatever.
Which two guys? What, the controllers?
The two controllers, yeah.
So that's a mega game. I mean, it's got something for everyone who's a gamer. If you're a gamer, you will find a role in a mega game that you enjoy, or even a mega game theme you enjoy, because they happen all over the country. And they've all got, every time there's a different theme, and then popular games do come back, for another run, maybe once or twice a year or so on. So go out there and try it, because it's a hell of a lot of fun. But I know that not everyone enjoys it every time.
No.
Our deputy mayor left the game on this one, but that was because I don't think he was really a political player. And he took a political role and didn't get into it. Like when I went and raised that 25 million for funding that militia, I did that by going around and asking people, but he wasn't the kind of person I think that felt comfortable asking people for money, even though it was fake money. And so he left the game. I think I might have also upset him with the politicking at the start, because he was a Democrat and I was a Republican. We did kind of dump the Democrats in it, didn't we?
Yeah, but that's kind of expected. That's how it's deliberately set up, so there's conflict. Yeah. I mean, we went in knowing that was going to happen. You'd probably be more suited to doing essentially what I was doing.
I think
being around the board and being guided by somebody and rolling some dice.
So find a mega game, find a theme that appeals to you and a mega game group near you, and importantly, choose the right role for your type of gameplay, the things that interest you. Now it's rated 18.
Wait, shit. Are we married yet?
No. Also, the whole city's on fire and smoke.